Good Tuesday afternoon to you. Hope you're having a great day. Thanks for joining us on Sports4CLE. A little later in the show, Chris Fedor, Cavs beat reporter from the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com, will join us. Cavs coming back from a pretty impressive West Coast trip, 4-4 on the year. We'll talk a little Cavs. We begin by talking Browns. NFL trade deadline has come and gone. Browns not involved in any trades. Biggest name traded from the Steelers. Melvin Ingram goes from the Steelers to the Chiefs. Really wasn't involved in the Steelers rotation. So Melvin Ingram, defensive end, edge rusher, will be headed to Kansas City to play for the Chiefs. Browns did have a roster move. Johnny Stanton, fullback, was waived, and that is to make room for Andy Janovich, who can come off of the injured list. Likely that Stanton, if he clears waivers, will be signed to the Browns practice squad. That does all of the mechanics of things that have happened as far as transaction goes with the Browns. Not a dull day by any stretch of the imagination. Odell Beckham Jr. still with the Browns, not involved in any type of trade, not expected to be. But some strange things occurring. Odell Beckham's dad's Instagram account, so go figure that one out, posted this saying that Odell is open. And I do have to mention, we have an opening for a producer for Odell Beckham's dad. The spot shadow, the graphic, well done. The point here is you can see open there, not looking, eyes are down, looking on another receiver. It is going through this pretty substantially as the Browns, Odell Beckham Jr.'s dad, Odell Beckham Sr., his Instagram account, kind of delineating just how often Odell is open multiple times. And we've kind of seen some of that. For whatever reason, Odell Beckham Jr. and Baker Mayfield unable to get on the same page. In great detail, we see, again, the spot shadow on Odell, and again, we'll take another look, just kind of delineating where the opening is behind the defense and all that. So let's welcome in Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, as well as cleveland.com. I tell you, the Odell Sr. has done a great job as far as spot shadowing, and it can break down film. Mary Kay, I guess the question to you is, are the Browns using Odell Beckham Jr. as effectively as they can?
Well, first of all, to set the record straight, Odell Beckham Sr. did not produce the video because that was actually sent to me yesterday as well. And I used it in a post. I used it in a column that I wrote about how Kevin Stefanski is vowing again to get the ball into the hands of Odell Beckham Jr. But as I was saying, it might be a little bit too little, too late. So I did use that post yesterday. The interesting thing is that his dad went ahead and posted that on his own Instagram, which speaks to me and says to me that if his dad is posting that, it indicates that perhaps Odell would have been fine with a trade, would have welcomed a trade. That's what I think. Now, again, I don't know that for sure because I have not talked to Odell about this yet, and it seems like nobody really has. He hasn't really weighed in on it too much, but the trade deadline came and went. He's still a Cleveland Brown. As far as your question about whether or not they're using him right, they're not using him enough. And in terms of using him right, I still think that there's more that they can do. In this past game, for instance, they probably could have tried, some reverses, some jet sweeps, some gadget plays, something. You have to get OBJ involved, just like Jarvis Landry. You've got to get OBJ rolling early on like you did in that Dallas game to get his head in the game. When you get his head into the game, then you're going to get the best out of him. But if you start to lose him, then you really lose him. And I think that going forward, if he's still on the team, and again, we don't know for sure because if he's going to be on the team going forward. This was a weird set of circumstances that happened today and over the last few days. So we don't know exactly what's going to happen yet. But if he's still around, then I would think that they've got to find and devise ways to get him involved and get something get some bang for that buck.
Don't you want to get him out in space with the ball in his hands? Isn't that kind of the thing that you try to do with a guy that is dynamic and has the type of playmaking ability?
Yes, that's definitely one thing that you want to do. So some shorter routes where you can rely on his run after catch. And this year, when Baker Mayfield has really kind of been struggling with his accuracy and with the long ball, they keep going for the real sort of downfield things. And those things just aren't really working right now. But actually, in that video that that I had in my story and that we've seen elsewhere, you can see that there are plenty of times that Odell Beckham Jr. is open, and for whatever reason, Baker Mayfield hasn't been really just focusing on him all that much. And I think that is in part because Odell has dropped a few passes this year, and I don't know that Baker 100% trusts him to get the job done all the time. I think he started to want to go to Jarvis Landry a little bit more. That didn't work out so well in the past game because Jarvis, as you know, had one of the worst games I've ever seen him have. So unfortunately, that plan didn't work either. But there are plenty of times where Odell is open and they're not going to him.
So here's some interesting tweets that we have as far as the targets and what's happening with Odell Beckham. This is from Jared Evans. So highest percentage of uncatchable targets this season. Elijah Moore is tops. That's Jets rookie wide receiver, 47%. Robbie Anderson next. He's with the Panthers. Sam Darnold, quarterback, 44%. Odell Beckham is third at 41%. And the same, Jared Evans tweets this as far as Baker Mayfield's career uncatchable pass percentage when targeting Odell Beckham, 35%. Anyone else, 20%. And again, I think that's to your point, Mary Kay, that they're trying to get him the ball downfield. Those are not high percentage things. And when you hit them, they're home runs, if you will, but you're not going to hit those very often.
Yeah, and especially this year. And I think that's because Baker Mayfield has been struggling trying to throw with the harness on. And even though this isn't supposed to be affecting him or impacting him in any way, it's just not bearing out in the statistics. I mean, he is way down at the bottom of the barrel in terms of passes of 20 yards or more. He is struggling to connect with pretty much, most of his receivers on the long ball. But you're right. A lot of those low percentage passes have gone to Odell Beckham Jr. over the years, which is why you see that disparity in the catch rate. So, you have to take that into account because that is huge. But still, even aside from that, those two guys just haven't had it together for whatever reason. And it's almost the 1-year anniversary of one of those fateful miscommunications that they had in Cincinnati on October 25th last year, where it was that sideline pass and they were just off. I mean, Beckham was still running. I mean, it was just one of those things where the ball got picked off and he tore the ACL trying to make the tackle. So, it was just it's emblematic of the problems between those two.
Well, the other thing, and I know you put this in one of your articles, it surprised me when we found out Odell Beckham Jr. leads the team in targets with 34, only has 17 receptions. Hooper is second with 28. So again, you're kind of surprised. I was surprised to see how often Odell had been targeted this season.
Well, it seems like when he first came back, I mean, they were, ready to really showcase him and have him be a big part of the offense. His first game back, he played, I thought, too many snaps, and I think had 9 targets in that game, which was a lot. But it looked like that's how it was going to go, that, hey, Odell is back, and, we've got our star receiver back, and let's roll. But it hasn't worked out that way to the point where it's been fewer and fewer targets at, every game, to the point where in that Chargers game in LA at SoFi, when he had all these NBA friends there, LeBron was there, people were visiting his parents in the suite and his girlfriend in the suite, and it was just looked like it was setting up for a big Odell day. And he ended up with 3 targets that day, 2 catches. That was the one game in which he dropped that, what would have been an easy touchdown pass on 4th and 2 at the 17 inside the red zone. It seemed like after that, Baker was like, okay, that's it. I gave you your chance and you blew it. And, and we'll just talk about this another time. And so it's just been unfortunate. It's been unfortunate to watch how this has transpired. and now they have to figure out where do they go from here.
All right, let's shift our attention away from the whole Odell Beckham and Baker Mayfield. Takeaways from the Steelers game. What are the issues that are specific to that game? What's your bigger picture that need to be addressed as the season moves on?
Well, it boggles my mind that Baker Mayfield only has 6 touchdown passes in 7 games this year. So the passing game just is not what anyone needs it to be. I don't know if they need to be more aggressive in their play calling. I actually think that they need to get the ball more to David Njoku. They need to rely on him a little bit more as a deep threat. I do think that it hurt not to have Kareem Hunt that game. I think it hurt not to have Donovan Peoples-Jones that game because he's been one of the better receivers lately. I mean, he is the only receiver actually with 2 touchdown catches, multiple touchdown catches this season, which is so hard to believe, but here we are. I think some of it has to do with the lack of continuity on offense. They did without Jarvis Landry for 4 games. They were without Odell, and now he's not himself. Now they're without Jack Conklin for a while. Nick Chubb was out, Kareem Hunt. So they just haven't really had all of their guys together on this offense, and I think it's hurt them a lot.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, as well as cleveland.com, and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we'll continue talking a little bit about the offense as the Browns try to get things rolling. Bengals coming up, second AFC North game. Browns 4-4 on the year. We'll talk more Browns offense when Sports4CLE returns. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Back to new friends, new classroom, and learning new things. Back to wearing shoes, man, like real shoes. Back to rushing to class. Back to having questions, lots of questions. Back to vending machine dinners. Back to too much caffeine, too late at night, but feeling like it was a night well spent. Back to pursuing your dreams and taking control of your future. Come back to go forward. Try C, where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just a mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
We continue talking Browns, getting ready for the Bengals down in Cincinnati Sunday at 1 o'clock. Trent Dilfer, former NFL quarterback from the Herd on FS1, talked about what the Browns offense needs.
It's a tough one. I want to see. I'd like somebody to tell me how many games have Beckham, Landry, Chubb, Hunt all played together. Like, you go into the season with certain things on paper, and then you never really get to play with all the people you've planned around. I want to see them all play together a bunch before we start writing the Browns off. I've always been a believer that you really can start hitting your stride now. They're 4-4. They've underachieved. I agree with you. The offense is broken, but I do think it needs a chance to get fixed. I do think they can fix it. I think Baker can be better than he's been, given all the appropriate weapons around him playing. I think part of it is how the game's been called. Because they don't have everybody, they call a very conservative type of football. It is. I've always thought when you run the ball well and you throw short passes, that doesn't mix. Like if you run the ball well, you should take chunks. If you don't run the ball well, then you do all those short little completion plays. To me, they try to run the ball between the tackles. They try to establish that, but they also just kind of throw the short, boring stuff.
Yeah.
I'd like to see him become more explosive in the passing game. Now, if they don't trust Baker, and there's times you see them not trusting him downfield, then that's an issue. Then that's a Baker issue.
Let's bring back in Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com. It's an interesting perspective on long passing with run plays. And the answer to his question is Hunt, Chubb, Odell, and Landry have played 0 games together. So I don't know if that, everybody's banged up, but you're 9 games into the season. You got to figure it out.
Yes. You know what, though? I have to agree with him. I think, and I've been saying this and I've been writing this, these guys have had a lack of continuity in terms of who is on the field at any given time. Somebody's in, then somebody's out. They have not had their full complement of offense, and they really were ready to kind of spread the ball around and try some different things. And, it was supposed to be a pick your poison offense, and they just haven't had all that poison out there. I mean, I honestly think that had Kareem Hunt been on the field for the Steelers game, that he could have been the difference in a game like that. I mean, that is what he can bring, a Kareem Hunt. We saw what he brought in the playoff game and the intensity that he plays with. And if one guy's not, bringing everything that you need, like Jarvis having a rough game, Kareem's, the inspirational guy that can go in there and get things going. So I just think that if you still see Kareem, Nick, Odell, Jarvis, David Njoku, Austin Hooper all on the field at the same time, you will see some much better offense.
Well, the other thing, the offensive line has been beat up. So J.C. Treader talked about, the line and the offense just getting everything rolling and needing to play better. Here's J.C. Treader.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say perplexed. I think we have to play better. I think we know that we're not playing at our level we expect. So it's not like we don't know what we're supposed to be doing. We don't know why we're not, producing. We have to play better. We have to play sounder. We as a line have to protect better, have to open up more holes in the run game. We just have to play better. So it's not confusing, or there's not we're not throwing our hands up in the air saying, I'm not sure how this isn't working out. We know what we need to do better.
Mary Kay, what is missing from the offense? Can you put your finger on, boy, they need to do this better, or is it? I mean, nothing is ever that simple. But how do they get it rolling?
Well, I think one of the major problems has been the receiver play. Your top 2 receivers really just haven't been able to be that productive for you yet. Odell Beckham, for whatever reason, whether it's him and Baker together, whether it's one or the other, those guys haven't been able to make the connection. 0 touchdown passes between Baker and Odell. Same thing for Jarvis Landry. Jarvis comes back in this past game and has, once again, one of the worst games any of us have ever seen him play. We're talking about the Browns in a different way if Jarvis makes a couple of those plays, doesn't fumble, and they go out and win that football game, right? All you have to do is beat the Steelers in that game to improve to 5-3, and everything feels different right now. That's all it takes is a couple of mistakes to make it seem like the sky is falling. I don't think the sky is falling. I still do think that they can get it back together. But I do agree with him. I do agree with Trent that in certain situations that Kevin can call a little bit more of an aggressive game plan. They came out in the second half in this game and they started to throw it downfield a little further. Some of those plays to David Njoku, I think David needs to be involved more. And I think they can attack a little bit more.
How big is it? And we touched on it. Jack Conklin has a dislocated elbow. The good news is Kevin Stefanski said he expects him to play at some point. That's a right tackle who was playing really well. How big of a loss is he?
It is a big loss. I mean, not only is he your starting right tackle, he's your all-pro starting right tackle. And he's also ranked number 8 in the NFL right now by Pro Football Focus. And that is vitally important to have somebody that good on that side, because a lot of teams actually put their best pass rusher over the right tackle. That's where TJ Watt plays. That's where a number of these guys play. That's where Joey Bosa played. And so, so these are things that, that you're going to have to worry about going forward, because the Browns still have a lot of really good teams to play. And I think that's another major difference between this season and last season. When you look at the final stretch here, they've got, and I've seen the graphics, including watching Monday Night Football last night, that they have the second toughest schedule coming up in the NFL the rest of the way. So losing a guy like Jack Conklin, absolutely not ideal, not what you need, not what you want when you have these kind of good defenses coming out.
Yeah, I mean, keep in mind you got the Ravens twice, you got the Bengals twice, you got the Steelers again, plus you have the Packers on Christmas night. So it's kind of loaded up, especially in the division. Browns beat reporter from the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com, Kay Cabot, and I are going to take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we go to the voicemail of Truth and Reason regarding the defense in Baker Mayfield. Plus, we'll look a little bit more in depth at that defense of the Browns. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Back to new friends, new classroom, and learning new things. Back to wearing shoes, man, like real shoes. Back to rushing to class. Back to having questions. Lots of questions. Back to vending machine dinners. Back to too much caffeine, too late at night, but feeling like it was a night well spent. Back to pursuing your dreams and taking control of your future. Come back to go forward. Try C, where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns with Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, as well as cleveland.com. Time for us to head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason, this one about the defense and Baker Mayfield.
First of all, I don't trust Baker Mayfield. Although Sunday, it wasn't all his fault, but he had some really errant throws. And you just can't have that on a really quality quarterback. You just can't. A miss once in a while is, everybody does that. But this guy he's just too continuous as far as his misses. And as far as paying him the $40-some million, if they do, they're insane. My second comment is the defense, Joe Woods' defense. How many weeks in a row do you have to give up a touchdown in the fourth quarter when you're holding the lead? And so many of the Cleveland commentators are saying, well, if you hold them to 15 points, you should win. Well, in all probability, you should win. But by the same token, if you have the lead, you have to shut them down. And Joe Woods is not the answer. I think he's the weak link. Now, they go in and play like this in Cincinnati, and the next week is Bill Belichick. They will eat them alive.
All right, let's bring back in Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for Plain Dealer and cleveland.com. Kay, we'll get to Baker in a minute, but let's deal with that defense first. When you look at the defense, what do you see? I mean, again, 15 points, you should win.
I see some decent things on defense. Holding a team to 15 points, that's really good. But what I'm not seeing, and what I think is vitally important, are the takeaways. Greg Newsome addressed this the other day, and it's just so true. They have 5 takeaways, and I looked at this up yesterday, and I put it in one of my stories. That's either 29th or 31st. I can't remember. I was working with so many numbers yesterday, but it's way down there on the bottom of the totem pole. They've got 3 interceptions, 2 forced fumbles, 5 takeaways. There are teams that have 18 takeaways this year. 2 of those teams, the Bills and the Colts. I mean, the Browns are taking the longer, harder road to victory without getting any takeaways because they're not turning the ball over. They have only turned the ball over 5 times this season. 8 times this season. That's not that much really. But to only get 5 takeaways, that's just not going to cut it. And I put some of that onto Myles Garrett, and I think he knows it. He tweeted, I think it was yesterday, that being great is not enough and he has to take his game up to another level. And I'm going to have to agree with him on that, because in order to be great, in order to be the game changer, in order to be the NFL Defensive Player of the Year, you have to be a major reason why the Browns win the football game, which he was that early on last season. If you recall, there were 4 or 5 games early on in the season where he was getting the game-changing strip sack or sack fumble, whatever you want to call it. He hasn't really done that this year. Now, he does lead the league with 10.5 sacks, but in a game like that against the Pittsburgh Steelers, you've got to do something to go out there and win the football game, or at least make the play that causes you to win the game.
When we looked at this defense, you saw the pieces and you thought, boy, that this could be dominant. Is there the potential for this defense to still be dominant? Do you still see how that can happen, or is it just, are the pieces not fitting together the way they need to?
Well, I think they are. Once again, the Browns need to get healthy and start peaking at the right time, really on both sides of the ball. And I think we've heard Baker Mayfield say this. Nobody decides who's going to the playoffs after 8 games, right? The Chiefs could still go to the Super Bowl this year. They're 4-4 right now. Nothing has been decided. I do think that everything is still in front of them if they can kind of get it together a little bit. Defensively, what they need to happen is, Takk McKinley missed that game, and that might not seem like a huge thing, but he's been playing fairly well. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, he's been out. Now you've got John Johnson out for a while. Denzel Ward was out that game. So once again, if all these pieces and parts start coming back together at the right time, and they're all together through December in that final stretch, then they can still get it together and play some dominant defensive football.
So what concerns you the most if you're sitting there kind of going, if the Browns are going to do what they want to do, get to the playoffs and be the team they want to be, they're sitting at 4-4 right now. What area concerns you the most? What do they need to get corrected moving forward so they can start winning some games and string them together?
The passing game. The passing game, they've got to get that going. You cannot win football games in the NFL if you're going to be scoring 17, 14, 14, and 10 points, which is what they've done 4 times over the last 5 weeks, including 3 times, again, of 14, 14, and 10. You're just not going to win games like that. You need to be able to score the football, and you need to be able to find people who can score the football for you. You can't be having 7 touchdown passes total right now, 6 for Baker in 7 starts. That's way, way down again at the bottom of the totem pole. They need to score the football, and you can't just do it on the ground. They're good at that, but you've got to get down in the red zone, and you've got to be dangerous in the red zone like they were last season in the second half. Now, I was the Debbie Downer sometimes last year, and the naysayer talking about how they were beating they weren't beating the juggernauts of the NFL defensively. Well, they've got tougher challenges this year, and they've got to rise to the occasion, get down in that red zone, and throw touchdown passes to David Njoku. Odell Beckham Jr. needs to catch some touchdown passes. So does Jarvis Landry. Jarvis has never really done that in a Browns uniform the way that he should. Score touchdowns, so that he needs to get in there more. Donovan Peoples-Jones, he's established himself as being a touchdown maker, and so has Rashard Higgins. They need to get this thing cranking.
Yeah, to illustrate what you're saying, so Baker Mayfield 6 touchdown passes, that ties him with Jimmy Garoppolo, I believe it's 29th. Davis Mills, the rookie from the Texans, has thrown more touchdown passes. The other thing is, only 3 of his touchdown passes have been to wide receivers, 2 of them to Donovan Peoples-Jones, none of them to Odell Beckham or Jarvis Landry, and Baker's been sacked 22 times. That's something that's way too high as well. Is that holding on to the ball, kind of trying to find something that might not be there?
Well, I think one of the things that's happening, and we wondered about this heading into the season. I wondered about it a lot. I asked a lot of people about it. How were teams going to try to defend Baker Mayfield this year? What were they going to try to take away? And I think one of the things that they have tried to take away to a certain extent are the bootlegs and the keepers. And he really excelled on those things. He really does a nice job when he's out on the run, and he just is usually super accurate when he's on the move. But that's one of the things that I think teams are trying to minimize with him a little bit this year is, just letting him just have all that space to go out there and operate. So we'll have to see how that goes going forward. But I actually kind of think it's a league-wide trend. Teams were just not going to let this Kyle Shanahan, Gary Kubiak offense just take over the whole league without trying to figure out how to solve it a little bit.
Yeah, and now, the Kevin Stefanski and the offensive staff has to figure out, what is the counter punch to that punch, taking it away. And again, 4-4, so you're 9 weeks in. It's getting late in the season awfully quick. Mary Kay Cabot and I are going to step aside, take one more time out. On the other side of the break, we turn our attention to the Bengals and the AFC North. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a line. A long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just a mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
Thanks for buying a fishing license. I want you to picture all of the great things this simple purchase does. Like building public boat ramps, keeping local waters clean, and maintaining a healthy fish population.
What's Mom doing?
When you buy a fishing license, you do a lot. Every dollar protects and maintains your local waterways for future generations to enjoy. Visit takemefishing.org.
Browns getting ready for the Bengals down in Cincinnati. 1 o'clock kickoff Sunday at 4-4. Mary Kay, when you look at the Browns, they're in the bottom of the AFC North, but everybody's bunched together. They're 2 games out of first, 2 back in the loss column to the Ravens and the Bengals. Well, the Bengals lost, so 2 in the loss column to just the Ravens. Do we have a good sense or a good idea of who the Browns are this year yet, or 9 games in, is it still a little bit of a mystery?
Well, think about this. Even though losing to the Pittsburgh Steelers at home by a score of 15-10, and some of the things that have gone on in the last few days, even though it seems like the sky is falling right now, all they have to do is go into Cincinnati and beat those Bengals, and all of a sudden you're looking at being 5-4, same record as the Bengals, who were in first place a couple of weeks ago. And, all will be right with the world again. They'll be right on track. They'll still have all their goals in front of them. They'll still have an opportunity to win the AFC North. All of that is still possible and available to them. It doesn't feel like it right in the moment right now because, we're dealing with, that was a crushing loss. That's really, really hard to lose to Ben Roethlisberger and the Steelers like that and to, again, only score 10 points. But things can change. Things can change with that victory in Cincinnati. Now, it's not going to be easy by any stretch of the imagination. This is a Cincinnati team that is coming off a very disappointing loss to the Jets and their backup quarterback. They were humming along. They were feeling really good about themselves. And now their backs are against the wall, they feel, and they've got something to prove. They're coming back home into their home stadium, and they want to show the Cleveland Browns what they're all about this year. So they're going to bring an intensity. The Browns are going to have to match it. But, things could look drastically different Sunday by 4 o'clock.
When you look at the Bengals, it's a team whose offense kind of mirrors the ones that have given the Browns a little bit of trouble. When you look at the Chargers and the teams with the quarterback who can throw the ball downfield. So defense kind of needs to come and really be ready to play. Is it fair to say?
Yes, absolutely. And they don't know yet if they'll have Denzel back. They don't know for sure if they'll have John Johnson back. This is going to be a big game. Now, fortunately for them, Greg Newsome is playing very well, and Greedy Williams is playing very well. That has taken the sting out of Denzel Ward missing this past game, and Greedy filled in nicely for Greg a couple of games. So they're pretty darn lucky that Greedy has had the season that he's had so far. In fact, if you look at those Pro Football Focus ratings, he is ranked the highest Browns cornerback right now. So good for him for that. But John Johnson III, that's going to be a big loss. You don't want to start getting too far down into your safety depth in a game like this. Joe Mixon's going to come in, play with his hair on fire, and then we just have seen, for the most part, how good Joe Burrow can be when he's on.
You and I had talked about the Bengals earlier and how they had some intriguing young talent. That young talent is playing pretty well. I mean, they went in and you mentioned disappointing loss to the Jets. They beat up the Ravens, and so I think the Browns are going to get pretty much the Bengals' best shot coming in on Sunday. Would you agree with that?
Yes, they definitely will. But there are a few little areas of vulnerability. Joe Burrow can be sacked. He was sacked. I think the Jets got to him at least 3 times in that game. And he's been sacked a fair amount this season. So this could be one of those games that if they don't chip Myles Garrett with a running back or a tight end, it could be a little bit of a long afternoon for Joe Burrow. And, and we have seen Myles do that to Joe Burrow, like he did last year in the first game where he's, with the sack fumble. So, yes, the Browns are going to have to bring their A game. They're going to have to bring their intensity, and they're going to have to bring a passing game that we haven't seen yet.
You mentioned Joe Burrow has been sacked 20 times, so just 2 less than Baker Mayfield, and he's coming off that knee injury. He's not real mobile. The other thing is the Bengals defense has definitely improved, but they gave up a ton of yardage to Michael Carter, rookie running back. So there are some areas, Nick Chubb, Dearness Johnson, and the Browns running game and short passing game can exploit as well.
Absolutely. And, the Browns, didn't do a good job of winning their one-on-one battles up front in order to give Nick an opportunity to really, tear it up against the Steelers. He's going to have to do better, but I think you can use more of Dearness Johnson too. I mean, Nick was coming off of a calf injury. So in a situation like that, I think I would have gone with the hot hand a little bit more and just given Dearness Johnson a chance to see if he could, recreate some of the magic he had from the week before. And they gave it to him a few times, but 4 isn't really enough to get into the flow of the game. So let's see if they do that any differently this week. They're still going to miss Kareem Hunt this week. That won't help matters. And we'll have to see, is Odell Beckham Jr. still going to be on the team? Will he be playing in Cincinnati? That's going to be the big mystery for a day or two.
When you look at the Bengals, that's also a team historically that Baker Mayfield's played pretty well against.
Well, he had one of his best games in Cincinnati last year. Of course, he sort of, lit up, and was that coincidence or not, after Odell Beckham Jr. was out of the lineup, left early on Baker's first pass with that torn ACL. And then Baker kind of got in the zone after that. And he threw that game-winning touchdown pass to Donovan Peoples-Jones to pull that victory out in the end. It's one of the only, there haven't been a whole lot of games where Baker has just gone down and won the game for you in the end. And he did it in Cincinnati. And, that was a game that I think really showed the Browns. After that game, I think they really felt like, we've got our guy. This is him. That's what we wanted to see. He did it. Now, I think there were some extenuating circumstances in that game. I don't think the defense for Cincinnati was 100% all there and bought into the program at the time. There were some weird things going on the sideline with guys putting their houses up for sale in that game. But still, I think that it was Baker Mayfield kind of putting himself on the Browns map and saying, I'm your man.
So Baker's 5-1 against the Bengals, and I'm not asking necessarily for a prediction. How do you think this kind of plays out, the game against the Bengals in Cincinnati?
I think it's going to be a dogfight, just like it was last year in Cincinnati, right until the end. I think it's going to be a really, really tough battle. I think it's going to be very, very physical. I think Baker's going to come out with his hair on fire. I mean, look, the events of this week, I think he will use for motivation. I mean, he has, one of his top receivers' fathers putting out or reposting a video showing all the times that he's missing Odell Beckham Jr. Sometimes that's what Baker needs to get his mad face on, and he plays well when he's got a little bit of an edge to him at times. So I think he's going to come out and do a nice job. Jarvis is going to come out mad at himself. I know Myles Garrett is ready to step it up a notch. I think they're going to bring it.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer as well as cleveland.com. Mary Kay, as always, appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much.
Thanks for having me.
All right, Mary Kay Cabot, make sure you read her pages of the Plain Dealer as well as cleveland.com. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out, shift our focus a little bit. Cleveland Cavaliers, 4-4 on the year, and the young Cavs coming off a West Coast trip where they went 3-2. Chris Fedor will join us. We'll talk Cavs when Sports4CLE returns. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Back to new friends, new classroom, and learning new things. Back to wearing shoes, man, like real shoes. Back to rushing to class. Back to having questions. Lots of questions. Back to vending machine dinners. Back to too much caffeine, too late at night, but feeling like it was a night well spent. Back to pursuing your dreams and taking control of your future. Come back to go forward. Try C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams. I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
We turn our attention to the Cavs, 4-4 on the year, coming off a 3-2 trip where they headed out west. Let's welcome in Cavs beat reporter for cleveland.com, as well as the Plain Dealer, Chris Fedor. Chris, I got to be honest with you. When I saw the schedule come out and saw this young team is headed out west 3 games into the season, I was like, oh no. What did they do so well on the trip that enables to come back 3-2, a winning West Coast trip for the youngest team in the NBA?
First of all, Dave, you and everybody else thought the same thing. I think Vegas had them at 0-8 after the first 8 games, to be honest with you. But I mean, like, what they did well is they just played harder than their opponents. The truth is they don't have as much talent as teams like Denver and Los Angeles and Phoenix and Charlotte. And yes, Charlotte, who made the play-in tournament last year. There's still a talent gap between the Cavs and those other teams. Now, it's closed a little bit over the last couple of years, especially with the addition of Evan Mobley and Lauri Markkanen. But the Cavs have to play harder and smarter than a lot of these teams. And they play hard on a nightly basis. they defend on a nightly basis so far. It's only 8 games into the season, obviously, but that is their identity. That's their formula for winning. That's their formula for overcoming what is going to be a talent deficiency on a lot of these nights.
Who really impressed you out west? I know you made the trip with the team, and again, appreciate you hanging in with us as you just got back. But who really impressed you on that trip?
So I think it's hard to not be impressed by Ricky Rubio, but Dave, like coming into the year, I think a lot of people expected him to be a really, really important piece of this thing. Kevin Love has been better than I thought he was going to be at this stage, but Evan Mobley to me is the one that stands out. And look, I think we all knew he's the 3rd overall pick. He was looked at as the potential franchise cornerstone. I think we knew that there were going to be these flashes of brilliance. Offensively and defensively, you're going to see things from Evan on a nightly basis, flashes throughout the game that make you say, whoa, this guy's different. But there's been a level of consistency, Dave, with his impact and his play that is uncommon for a rookie at this stage of his career, at this stage of his development, especially for this kind of guy, Dave, where he's not a high usage player. He's not going to have the ball in his hands constantly. He just finds a way, offensively and defensively especially, to make his team better and make everybody else around him better. And that is a rare trait for a 20-year-old kid who is still finding his way in the NBA.
You also can look at Jared Allen, and he has raised his game up, and you can absolutely play Allen and Mobley together. In a matter of fact, they complement each other really well, and I think that was a question coming into this. Could those two guys exist? And yeah, they're going to exist and thrive, it looks like.
Yeah, and the great thing about them, I feel like they fill in the gaps. So Jared Allen obviously can't play out on the perimeter. Everybody understands that. Well, Evan Mobley can. So the things that Jared Allen doesn't do great right now, and by the way, he's still only 23 years old, and there is still some upside there that they can pull out of Allen. So he is not a finished product by any means, and I expect him to get better and better as this season goes on. But the weaknesses that he has currently, like some of those things are Mobley's strengths, and he can fill in those gaps. And the same thing goes for Allen, right? He's more tough. He's more physical. He's more developed than Evan is right now. So he can handle those matchups against like Jokic and DeAndre Ayton in a way that Mobley can't right now because he's still only 20 years old and he's still coming into his body. Mobley right now is more of a 4. Allen right now is more of a 5. Maybe in the future, Mobley is going to transition to the 5 the way that Bosh did later in his career or the way that Kevin Garnett did later in his career. But for now, the Cavs need Jared Allen to play that kind of role so that Evan Mobley doesn't have to play that kind of role. So filling in the gaps, like whatever Allen is missing, Mobley brings, and whatever Mobley is missing, Allen is bringing. And that's a great combination. The Cavs always believed, Dave, that those two were going to be great together. But the reason why they've been able to use this tall ball lineup and be so unique is because of Lauri Markkanen's ability to play the 3. Without him, this is just a team with very good 7-footers, 2 very good 7-footers, but like a lot of teams have 2 very good 7-footers. 3, that's what makes the Cavs different.
The other thing that we touched on Ricky Rubio a little bit, but he has really kind of given the steadying thing into that guard rotation. And it's almost an equal rotation between Sexton, Garland, and Rubio. And it seems like I would think that the 2 younger guys will learn just by watching what he does, and it'll help develop their game. I think that's got to be the thought process behind Rubio being there.
That's part of it, obviously, and he gives them an adult that can run the offense. And I don't mean this as a negative when it comes to Darius Garland or Colin Sexton, because I think they both have bright futures. But the truth is, Ricky Rubio at this stage of his career is more advanced and more knowledgeable than any of those guys. He can see things that those guys can't see. He can make plays that those guys can't make. He is an adult. These other guys are young kids that are still, even though this is year 3 and 4 for them respectively, they're still finding their way. they're still struggling to find a level of consistency that takes a good player from a great player, or takes a young player into veteran status. And beyond that, you're right, Dave, like you're already seeing Darius Garland take some of the things that Ricky Rubio does and implement them into his game. Just watch how Darius Garland now navigates the pick and roll. He's been holding his dribble for a beat longer. Sometimes he'll keep the dribble alive as he goes baseline, and instead of forcing floaters like he did at times last year, he'll keep the dribble alive, he'll survey the defense a little bit longer, and he'll either make a twisting layup or he'll be able to get Jared Allen, Evan Mobley, Lauri Markkanen, one of these looks inside. And that is a direct correlation to how Ricky Rubio navigates pick and rolls.
Chris Fedor, Cavs beat reporter from the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com, and I are going to step aside, take one more time out. On the other side of the break, we continue to talk about the Cavs. What areas can they possibly improve in? And what do they need to do to keep it rolling? Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Back to new friends, new classroom, and learning new things. Back to wearing shoes, man, like real shoes. Back to rushing to class. Back to having questions. Lots of questions. Back to vending machine dinners. Back to too much caffeine, too late at night, but feeling like it was a night well spent. Back to pursuing your dreams and taking control of your future. Come back to go forward. Try C, where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a line. A long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
I had to leave my parents. I had to move schools. I don't know anyone here. Everything keeps changing. Why is this happening to me? I'm sure glad you're here.
Change a child's story. There's a child in foster care waiting for a volunteer like you. Learn how you can help at casaforchildren.org.
Cavs off to a 4-4 start, coming back after a really successful 3-2 West Coast trip. Let's welcome back in Chris Fedor, beat reporter for the Cavs on cleveland.com, as well as the Plain Dealer. So, Chris, we've kind of touched on this. Young team, how sustainable is the way they're playing? Because it is high effort, it is high energy, and they got to bring it pretty much every game.
Yeah, you're right about that, Dave. It's going to take a lot out of them, especially if they're going to keep playing 8-9 guys, right? It's very, very hard for them to sustain the level of effort that they have shown through the first 8 games. But I think stylistically, some of the things that they have done, I think that's sustainable. I mean, I think you've seen, as weird as it is, you've seen the tall ball lineup with 3 7-footers actually work because of what Markkanen has been able to bring at both ends of the floor, especially defensively. He's been a revelation on defense, honestly. Like, he came to the Cavs and everybody's like, this guy can't defend anybody. And now he's playing a position that he's never played before consistently in the NBA, and he's playing it well enough, especially when he's surrounded by Evan Mobley and Jared Allen. So that part is sustainable. I think their defensive uptick, I think that is sustainable as well, given the pieces that they have and the 2 rim protectors that they have in Mobley and Allen. Like, having those 2 guys just gives the Cavs a unique look. And some teams, Dave, as you even noticed on the West Coast trip, don't want to test the Cavs inside. And some of these guys, as JP Bickerstaff said, are pump faking ghosts. So stylistically, I think their defense, I don't know that it's going to stay right around the top 10 like it has, but it's going to be more respectable than it has been for the last 3 years. And because of that, I don't think there's going to be as much demand for the Cavs to be, a high level potent offense. Like, what I expected to have to be their formula coming into the year.
They haven't had Isaac Okoro for the last couple of games. How important is he to that defense? That's a guy that's probably one of their better perimeter defenders.
If you would have asked me this question last year, I think I probably would have had a different answer. I don't know that he's all that important to their defense. Look, obviously, you need him if you're going to have the small guards in Darius Garland and Colin Sexton, and Isaac's that guy who can take the best perimeter player on the opposing offense, and that's great. If you didn't have Evan Mobley, I think it would be a different conversation, but like Mobley can take those guys as well. The amazing thing about him, Dave, is he has been able to switch onto some of these smaller guards, keep them in front, and force them into tough shots, while also anchoring the paint at times, while also being at the top of the 3-2 zone. So because the Cavs have more capable defenders, I call them plus defenders, you don't feel the loss of Isaac Okoro as much as you probably would have as a rookie. Because if Okoro wasn't out there last year, like who was going to play that particular role that we're talking about here? There was nobody, especially once Nance went down with his long stints of injuries and illness. Even though Okoro isn't out there, the Cavs have other comparable players that can handle the role that Isaac was supposed to handle coming into year 2. So I don't think they feel it as much. I think they're going to feel the Kevin Love loss a little bit more than Isaac.
And again, he's in the protocol, so they're not sure. You're not sure when he might be back. This roster is extremely young. Really, really young. How do they avoid those prolonged stretches? I mean, is there any way they can, or is that just a concern that you have to learn to deal with because they are so young?
I think it's the latter. It's not just that they're so young. Many of these guys haven't won anything throughout the course of their career, and they don't know what winning looks like, and they don't know what winning takes. It's one thing to be on a team and to see it from afar, but to be in these moments, fourth quarter, Charlotte making a run, third quarter, Phoenix making a run, how do you react to those kinds of things? With the exception of Kevin Love and Ricky Rubio, these guys are just going to have to go through it. They're going to have to feel it. They're going to have to experience it. And sometimes they're going to be able to weather the storm the way that they did against Charlotte. And other times they're just not going to have the answer. Just like in Phoenix, when they allowed Phoenix to go on a 50-12 run. 50-12. And think about that. So there's just a level of youth and inexperience, and I hate saying it because everybody hates the term, but there are growing pains that this group is going to have to go through in order to reach the level that it wants to reach.
If Kobe Altman and JV Biggerstaff could find a veteran that could kind of plug in, what area, and I know I'm giving you a real big hypothetical, what area would they plug in a veteran to kind of be the, hey, let's cure this point and give you a veteran?
Forget the area, I'll give you a name. Harrison Barnes of the Sacramento Kings would be an ideal fit. He can play the 3 and the 4. He's hit big shots before in the playoffs. He's somebody who has been on winning teams with the Golden State Warriors. That's the kind of player, that archetype, number one, but also that specific player because of the experience that he gained early in his career with Golden State. Now, the truth is Sacramento loves him, and it's going to take a lot to try and get him away from the Kings because he's playing that role for the Kings that we're talking about the Cavs needing here in Cleveland. So that's the kind of player. And it doesn't mean that he would go right in the starting lineup, because I think the Cavs are committed to this tall ball thing that makes them different and allows them to be the kind of defensive team that they are. But having that type of player that can give you 28 to 30 minutes, a level of maturity, a level of professionalism, a level of three-point shooting that we haven't seen from this team, and two-way ability because he can play on the defensive end as well, that would be ideal for the Cavs. I think everybody knows how thin they are at the wing spot.
Chris Fedor, Cavs beat reporter for the Plain Dealer as well as cleveland.com. Chris, Thanks for joining us after that long West Coast trip. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much.
You got it, Dave. Anytime, man.
All right, Chris Fedor, make sure you read him, Pages of the Plain Dealer, as well as cleveland.com. That'll do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We will see you again back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Scheduled guest, Hayden Grove, reporter for the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com, and Mac Robinson from 92.3 The Fan. That is tomorrow, 4 o'clock on Sports for CLE. We'll see you then. Until then, have a great night, everyone.